My name is Juan Vasquez. I am from the Greeley Hispanic Church. I have been in the church for almost my entire life. Well, by the grace of God, Pastor, I was born into an Adventist home, but it wasn't until I returned to the church after 5 years of being away that God transformed me. When I left the church, I loved playing soccer, and I spent my Saturdays playing. But even while I was playing, I remembered that it was time to be in church, singing, and participating in the church. It was around 12, and I knew that was the time for lunch, for the potluck. I recalled thinking about my brothers and sisters. If it weren't for my wife, I wouldn't have returned. She always told me, "Let's go to church. Let's go to church." I remember the first time I accompanied her. I was angry. I didn't want to go to church. I didn't have that desire, and I didn't go into the church. I stayed outside. The second time, the same thing happened. The third time, the same thing. From then on, I didn't realize when I entered the church, but I felt something in my heart that I had to be there. And that's when I remember there was a pastor. I don't remember his name. He was making the call, and I felt something in my heart that said, "It's time, Juan. It's time." I remember that I stood up, and I started to cry, and I just said to the Lord, "Lord, I have been away from you. I have been far from you, but I want you to be with me. I want to feel you. I want to not to be that young man from before. I want to be different." And from then on, I remember that my life changed. It changed completely. I think the one who had changed was me indeed. Because the church was still the same programs, the same gospel message and truth. The one who had changed was me. I felt different. I felt that I had had a special encounter with Christ, that I was no longer the same young man I was before, and that, that marked me. That stage of my life changed me. Because when you have a special encounter with Christ, your life changes. It's not because they tell you to, and it's not because you have to, but because you feel it, and because Christ is your driving force. When I was in the church, I felt that I had to be there. Maybe because my parents forced me to go, or maybe because I had that commitment that I had to be there. And the difference was that when I came back, I no longer felt that I had to go, that I had to be there, that people were watching me to make sure I went. No, when I came back, that was the change in my life, Christ. So from then on until now, I no longer felt pressure to attend or pressure to show up. I have experienced that everything I do, everything I give, serve, is because Christ lives in me. That is the big difference. The two departments I like are youth and family, one because I was young, and the other because I have my family now. And what I want is to help the youth. I want to help families. And many times, as I tell the young people, sometimes one is here in person, in body only, but your mind is not here. And that's because one hasn't had that special encounter with Christ. My recommendation is that if anyone hasn't had that special encounter with Christ yet, that they seek Jesus every day in their lives. It's so beautiful. It's so lovely. You won't have to do things because you have to. But when Christ lives in your soul and in your heart, mission happens naturally.